Hey guys, welcome back to 5-0, 100-0.com. I am Fugget, the fittest underdog guru, using intelligent tactics. And today, guys, I have a very strange video for you. A lot of you know, I was a professional wrestler, and still have done it part-time in more recent years for fun, and still just trying to see if the old man still has it. I had a couple of requests from people that want to know that when I was in the wrestling business or before I got in the wrestling business, who are my favorite pro wrestlers or like talent, right? So first off, I made up a top 10 list of my favorite pro wrestlers, right? The ones that were the most influential growing up and then getting into the business. And once I was in the business, sort of like when you find out Santa Claus isn't real, you know, you kind of see the wizard behind the curtain, and it kind of ruins it for you a little bit, but you could still appreciate the art form. So a lot of these wrestlers were ones that I watched and looked up to before I actually became a pro wrestler, and a couple of them, as it'll be explained, were influential while I was in the wrestling business. So first off, these top 10 are actual pro wrestlers or tag teams, but I want to have honorable mention, and I have two people in particular. One is Bobby the Brain Heenan. Always cracked me up, was brilliant, and then when I got into the business, I realized just how amazing and influential he was. And the second one is Howard Finkel, the ring announcer for the old WWF, and I think he still works behind the scenes, but he's one of the first guys I met when I got to WWF, and was one of the first ones from the front office that greeted me and was extremely nice, kind, and warm, and knew everything about me before I ever laced up my boots there. So anyways, for those of you that are still watching, these are my top 10 favorite and or who I was influenced by as a kid, and then as a big kid, as an adult pro wrestling fan. Number 10, the Warlord, okay? Now these go in order, okay? So my number 1 is going to be my favorite or most influential, and 10 will be the least, right? The Warlord, terrible worker slash wrestler, but a big SOB, and I just thought this guy is a monster, and was I was very awe-inspired by him, and I enjoyed watching his matches, even though I came to find out later on he was not that good in the ring. He was just an amazing physical specimen, and I always liked watching his matches. Okay, that's number 1. 2, the Brainbusters, Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. I thought these guys just looked like they were like redneck truck drivers or something. They didn't look like they had much in the way of a physique, but they were a well-oiled machine in the ring. They were very cagey. They were very like quick tags. They had Bobby the Brain Heenan as their manager, and I just loved watching them wrestle. Like, I love watching them cheat, break the rules, and all these other things that I just appreciated them and their heel personas. Number 8, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, I was a fan when he was a wrestler in Japan, and then in Smoky Mountain Wrestling as a tag team called the Thrill Seekers. And I always thought this guy has all of the makings of he was like a younger Shawn Michaels. And Chris Jericho, who's also the lead singer of the band Fozzy, has went on to just recreate himself over the years, and has done some amazing things in pro wrestling and still makes himself relevant today. So kudos to Chris Jericho. Number 7, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. I had just got into the wrestling business, and I was like in my late teen years when Shawn Michaels really started to become relevant. And he was just this high flyer that could do everything. He was very charismatic, and he was on top of the world in the early 90s, just before the Attitude Era broke. And I just loved watching his work. He was one of the smaller guys that still had a good physique, but gone were the era of the juicers, the big steroided up dudes. And his trimmed down physique, very athletic, paved the way for guys like me during the Attitude Era in their light heavyweight or cruiserweight division to have an impact. Number 6, the guy that trained me, Al Snow. Al Snow was like a second father to me. He was an amazing teacher, hell of a friend, great guy. I got a chance to see him after 15, 20 years of being out of the ring, and he immediately went back into his Jimmy V ribs, which Jimmy V is for vertically challenged, and it's for vasectomy, it's for this, that. So Al didn't forget me, and I'll never forget him. Amazing talent. He has a wrestling school just about on every place on this planet now. He's an amazing coach and entrepreneur. Go visit Collar and Elbow for amazingly well crafted t-shirts and other gear that I think you will love. I'm not a sponsored athlete or endorse or make a penny, but just go visit Al Snow at Collar and Elbow. Just Google that. Remember, Google's your mother. Go see their Al Snow stuff, and you will not be disappointed by the quality of the gear you're going to get from him. Next guy, number 5, Kerry Von Erich, the Texas Tornado. I remember watching Kerry Von Erich back. I missed his early days when there was territories, but Kerry Von Erich passed away in '93, but he was a Greek god if there ever was one when it came to his physique. And Kerry Von Erich, taken too early, I believe he was 33, by suicide, unfortunately, but part of the whole Von Erich family dynasty, from Fritz the father on down, and there's one surviving brother left. But Kerry Von Erich, good worker, very, very charismatic, just ridiculous good looks. Looked a lot like Ultimate Warrior physique-wise. Had his issues and his demons, and unfortunately the demons won. But he was very influential to me, and I always thought that he should go further than he did in the wrestling business. But, again, he kind of, sabotaged himself. So that's that. Number 4, Ric Flair, the nature boy, the kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, jet flying, woo, limousine riding, son of a gun. Love Ric Flair. I just thought he was so absurd. His promos, his interviews were off the charts crazy, and he's still very influential in like hip hop rap in the sports world, where you'll hear time and time again a lot of athletes saying that Ric Flair was an inspiration to them, and he is still. The man has, if cats have 9 lives, Ric Flair's got 81 lives. He's just an amazing character, and there'll never be another Ric Flair. So, Ric Flair, 4 horsemen, baby. Number 3, Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is a guy that got me watching pro wrestling after about 13, 14-year hiatus, where I wanted nothing to do with pro wrestling. I was just full on with fitness and television and everything I was doing in that world. And I just once in a while would peek back at wrestling, see what like The Rock and Austin and guys like my trainer Al Snow and other guys that I came up through the ranks with, and how far they had taken their careers. And so I just peek at it here and there, be the guy that might like watch a little bit of WrestleMania, but wasn't really watching it day to day. And I tuned in and watched Daniel Bryan doing this character with AJ Lee, and he was like kind of the verbally abusive boyfriend. And I just thought, this guy is an amazing bad guy / heel. And Daniel Bryan got me watching wrestling again. And to this day, I'm still watching and enjoying it and hating it in some ways as well. But yeah, Daniel Bryan is amazing. Number 2, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, Sabu, Lansing's own. Okay. When I was getting ready to break into pro wrestling and looking at like the schools, and then came to Al Snow's gym, Sabu was just starting to really break in out on the East Coast and internationally with a company called FMW in Japan. He is the nephew of the late great Sheik of Detroit fame, of big time wrestling back in the 1960s and 70s. And I never saw anybody like this guy. I mean, he was like super tan, scarred up, like tons of scars from barbed wire matches overseas, and was doing this reckless, crazy style, really wet, crazy hair in his face, sort of like a wet Roman Reigns or Bret Hart look. And he would do moonsaults through tables and at the end of his matches. And the first time I saw him was at a local the Detroit area at a racetrack where they had like a local indie show, Midwest Territorial Wrestling, I believe, with Kerry Von Erich. And I went to the show, and I'm watching him break tables in the ring after his match. I said, what the hell is this guy doing? And I was mesmerized by him. And I got to work with him. Basically, I was like a young boy just learning the ropes. So I had the opportunity with one of his buddies, Pee Wee Moore, who was a referee, to go pick up Sabu at his house, take him to the shows. I would be on the shows. I'd pick up guys like Tommy Dreamer. There was a wrestler from Japan I would pick up as well. I'll remember his name after I'm done filming. But Tommy Dreamer, Cactus Jack, guys like that. Mick Foley, as you might know him now, from the airport, and really got to pick these guys' brains, have some meals with them and whatnot. And he was very quiet and really lived the gimmick back then. He's a lot more verbal now, and with kayfabe and the whole wrestling being fake out of the bag now. He was very influential to me, and I just recently got a chance to tell him that, because back then it wasn't really cool to be like a fan or to tell another wrestler that you admired them or idolized them. But the business has changed a lot since I was in it, and so I was glad I got a chance to tell him that. He just wrote a book that it's on order right now that I'm going to be reading as well as Al Snow's book, the guy that trained me. And then last, and definitely the most influential wrestler on my top 10 of all time, is the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig. When I was a kid, I had a little black and white TV in my room. And one Saturday morning, I turned it on, and I saw this guy shaking ropes and was jacked and juiced to the gills and was going crazy with face paint on and just like going nuts. And I was like, what the hell is this? Because I grew up a sports fan where I played baseball semi-competitively. And during the off season, I was always bummed out. And so I began lifting weights and reading bodybuilding magazines and all that. And this Ultimate Warrior guy totally fit the bill of a bodybuilder, but he was in this ring doing all this absurd stuff, and I knew at some point that it was choreographed, but I just didn't know how it worked. But I didn't care. I was just mystified by all of the lights and the colors and the action and the over-the-top personas, and I just found it very entertaining. And pro wrestling was a year-round business, so I fell in love with that, fell out of love with baseball, and the Ultimate Warrior, it was like I idolized the guy for years. And then once I got in the business and I heard about his reputation and that he wasn't really a respecter of wrestling, but was really just trying to elevate himself and make as much money as he could, then I became a little bit of a wrestling snob and didn't like him anymore. And then years go by, and then appreciated what he did in wrestling. And he realized it was a business and it's about making money, and that's what he did. And he knew his value and his worth, and he got it financially, whether he burned a bridge or not. So anyways, guys, I know it's a little off the beaten path, but I was just feeling like I wanted to share that. I probably rambled on for a while here, but hopefully you enjoyed the video, and like, share, subscribe. And for those that are coming to my Hall of Fame induction for Michigan, I'll see you there. All right, guys, take care. I'll talk to you soon.